Esoterinerd podcast, episode 38, in which I interview Lon Milo DuQuette. But first,
Transformations and Footnotes.
For those of you who have not yet heard episodes 18, 21, 24, 29, or 34, Transformations and Footnotes is the segment in which I read my father's magnum opus verse by verse, since he divided it into chapters and verses. The book is called Transformations, and then afterward I talk about what I just read, and that's the footnotes. Transformations by John Dan Reeb, 1976. Chapter 1, Verse 7. I return to the white light very often. I cannot message to you exactly, in noises or the print that makes itself significant by agreement predicated upon the replication of noises with agreed-upon significance. Messaging is something you cannot effort to remember how to do, because you already know inside you and outside you how to do it. It takes falling into or jumping through, and it is delightful to do it and not get put into the place the flesh-placed fear junkies call the madhouse. Unless, of course, you're one of the ones who find delight in being a denizen of the padded cell or a tidbit for the shocking coil. Verse 8. I suppose it would be of interest to you, my other being parts, who find delight in walking to and fro in the flesh place, gathering agreement harmony harvests, instead of incarceration gruel, to know how to message and stay free, as we here like to call it, you and I, and not get incarcerated. I shall create spaces in words for you to find for life dancing. And now for the footnotes. Returning to the white light very often, my interpretation of that would be deep sleep, and my own beta body is trying to find the proper correspondence for the white light he's referring to. Is it spirit on some pentagram of Olam Yesodot's sphere of elements, or is it Keter? Is it absolute? Is it just some high-up place in Yetzirah? Seeing as he cannot message it to me exactly in noises or print that makes itself significance by agreement predicated on the replication of noises with agreed-upon significance, there's no way to know. And maybe these filing systems are not as perfect as we think they are. Perhaps when we arrive at the white light and we reach into our pocket to pull out our 777 correspondences and find out which white light we are in, we will find we have neither hand to reach in nor pocket from which to draw out a book or something. But he says we all already know how to message. I think I get it. That's like when you look at someone and you just know, you know? You can kind of see it from their point of view, or you think you can for a minute. And I have to wonder, is there actually anyone who finds delight in being a tidbit for the shocking coil or being in a padded cell? Maybe. Maybe on some transcendental level, like, why have I chosen this for myself? Why have I manifested these horrible things? Because you wanted to. You found delight in it. Well, I don't find delight in it. Well, change it. Sometimes you create something by fearing it. You start to think, oh God, what if it's this? And then you manifest that. Sometimes you hope for something and it doesn't manifest because there's a kernel of doubt there. Can't we put that kernel of doubt in the fear and leave the hope clean? Or maybe it wouldn't be called hope then. Maybe it would be called will. But I do like the closing line on verse 8. I shall create spaces in words for you to find for life dancing. So it's not the words, it's the spaces between the words, the spaces in the words, for life dancing. Our guest tonight is a very prolific author of occult and magical books. He is a teacher, he is a musician. So let's get to that interview, shall we? Greetings, Frater. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Thank you. I love the name of your podcast.
Oh, thank you very much.
That's so clever.
Yeah, I used to be part of a group where I felt everybody took themselves way too seriously. So I started referring to us as esoteric nerds, and then it just got shortened from there.
Well, that's perfect.
So how have you been? I noticed you've been in China a couple times lately.
Yeah. I guess, what, 3, 4 times? And I'm going to go 5 times this year, too.
Oh,
So,
that's great. So you were in Shanghai teaching the LBRP and Tarot and Tree of Life, and I imagine that's illegal, isn't it, in China?
no,
It's not?
no. And it was Beijing.
Okay.
The last time was
Right.
Beijing.
Recently.
I've been to Shanghai twice, and Taiwan, Taipei once, and all that was last year. And so I'm starting a new series of classes, ongoing classes in Beijing, and I'm going down to Sichuan also. But I'm going every season, beginning of spring, summer, winter, or fall and winter. And so it's going to be a Chinese year for me.
That's excellent. I can't help thinking of how interested so many people are, over here in our culture in I Ching and yoga and Buddhism. And so, it's very curious to see people in China learning the mysteries from over here or learning our esoteric mysteries. Is it about equivalent?
Well, it's in a sense, it's the same thing.
Right.
Ultimately, it's the same thing. And if you get far enough into either culture's esotericism, you see it's not two different things. It's the same thing with looked at a little bit differently.
Right, with nuances.
Yeah, and so this last time that point was, because my introduction was through Eastern mysticism, like back in the '60s. I pictured myself being a first-rate Eastern mystic,
Mm-hmm.
and which was ridiculous because I was I tell people the problem I had to overcome was I kept thinking how cool I would look losing my ego, and in a sense that's sort of the demarcation line between the Western hardwired mysticism and the Eastern. It's we're shooting for the same thing, only they go in and we go out,
Yeah.
And the big revelation is that there's nothing outside of your head, and it's,
Right.
all of our outness is inness, and all of the inness is outness, but you got to sort of gain that non-dual illumination before the light bulb goes off and you say, oh, right, I get it. Okay, I can do it either way.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. My dad was actually born in Shanghai. His dad was bringing petroleum back as far back as 1919, so he lived there for many years. So I loved seeing the pictures of you in Shanghai. My dad raised me telling me that I was his dad reincarnated, so I always visualized myself in Shanghai, but I didn't know what to visualize, and so it's nice to see the pictures. And
that's very interesting that he would I won't say that, but that he would observe that about you, because I'm pretty much comfortable with the fact that we're our own ancestors.
yeah.
And even if the dates, the objective reality dates, don't overlap, it really doesn't matter, because time is such a thing that we can just screw up by taking a nap.
Yeah.
So
and identity is such a fragile and membranous thing. So
right, and I'm just totally. I've realized, I don't want to even say it's my belief, I've just realized that uh, we just all one day wake up and figure out we've been each other all along.
Yeah.
And so I really, really think that it passes through families a lot. In a sense, uh, my wife thinks my son is her grandfather, and our grandson is her father.
Nice.
And of course, my brother and I took a bunch of uh, acid out in Joshua Tree National Monument.
Oh, best place to do it.
And just as the sun came up, we just looked at each other and realized that we are our own great uncles.
Oh, wow.
And I've wondered where all the infantile memories had came from. And all of a sudden it just, oh boy, well that makes sense. And of course, the more that we hear about genetic memory, the more we're tempted to say, well, this probably has something to do with genetic memory.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, well, I totally agree. I think genetic memory is one of the factors in what people think of as reincarnation anyway.
Right, or even the Akashic record.
You got it. Yeah. And this genetic memory is or what we call genetic memory at the moment is our attempt to focus in on a multi-dimensional, multifaceted concept of consciousness. But I think reincarnation is a sleight of hand.
Yeah.
Between genetic memory and reincarnation. So.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated by that since I had my maternal grandfather. He didn't buy any of it. He was very rational, scientific. But when he read about Beethoven's funeral, he flashed back to it. And so he was convinced that he had an ancestor in Austria that had gone to the funeral, and it had made such an impact that it stayed in the genetic memory and got passed all the way down.
That could very well be, but like I say, we're everybody. Ultimately, we're everybody anyway.
Right.
This is one just incredibly complicated single autobiography.
And a holographic universe in which each point contains the totality.
Right. And but I think the major branches or major vines of consciousness, the most immediate and the most obvious, are at least primarily and at first glance and easiest to spot within our own families.
Yeah, definitely.
So, which is really depressing.
A lot of people have been asking me, as if I were some authority, about David Bowie's occult background. I wasn't going to ask you about his occult background or any secret information you might have. I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts about him. And
well, I'm not a big David Bowie expert at all.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been an admirer and such, but I couldn't even say that I was a engaged fan.
Okay.
But let's put it this way, and magic is an art. Okay, mm-hmm. It's a science too, and it's a hobby, and it's a vice. But first and foremost, it's an art. It's an art form, and every artist is a magician. Okay, if you're an artist, I don't care if you're making mud pies or if you're collecting string and taking pictures of it as you snort it. Whatever your art is, doing it makes you a magician. So it's not the other way around that, well, many artists are magicians. No, no, all artists are magicians. And we it's easy to see how people in the arts, musicians, uh, uh, painters, dancers, uh, their sensitivity to how they express themselves and how they view their universe and their place in it, whether it has anything to do with the Kabbalah or astrology or wands and cups and swords and discs. Um, uh, it doesn't matter. Somewhere in their art, they're using wands and cups and swords and discs. Somewhere in their art, uh, they're dealing with the exact same metaphors of consciousness that magicians use. But some of them are more obvious than others to magicians.
Right.
So it's easy for us to see in the wonderful work and the artistic taste of an artist like Jimmy Page.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easy for us to say to recognize the same things that trigger our own artistic responses, and that includes the people he admires, like Aleister Crowley or Austin Spar. The the so it's kind of easy, and so you can spot that in Bowie right away. I mean,
Right.
the first time I saw him on Saturday Night Live being carried out in that real stiff suit with the shoulder pads, with the 10-foot shoulder pads, I had to say, I just bet that guy goes home and reads Crowley. It just he's got it just written all over his painted face there that this is that he gets. Here's a guy that could get Crowley.
Right.
And but I don't really think in any way that besides him making a few comments now and again about Crowley and the fact that every artist in their own way is a Thelemite, or is at least attempting to discover their will and do it, which in my opinion is the generic definition of Thelemite.
Mm-hmm.
It's only natural that if someone would bring up the literature of magic, that somebody like Bowie would be familiar with it.
Right.
And not only that, he probably just hung out with the same magical artists in every venue and community that he'd go to, and obviously he was appreciated Crowley and such. I've never been in temple with David Bowie.
Well, that would be the big reveal. That's what people are asking me is, so was he a member of the OTO? Was he a member of the Golden Dawn? What?
Yeah, I may have blindfolded him once, but I've never but never in a formal setting. So.
Now you're also a musician.
Yes.
So you're speaking with some personal experience about these things and the connection between music and magic.
Oh well, yeah, and it didn't always seem that way, but because I just got out of the business part of music for about 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's, in a sense, it's what got me into magic, and it was the magic. Music was the magic that allowed me to escape from Nebraska, which, given the population of Nebraska, you can imagine how many people don't.
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, Nebraska was a wonderful place to get out of. No, I don't want to say anything because it was like I Yes, let's don't get into Nebraska. Did you see the movie Nebraska?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh. Well, if you're ever curious about what Nebraska is like, see the movie and
Okay.
you'll go. It's one of the best movies you'll never want to see again.
I might have driven through it once with my dad. I'm not sure.
So, but anyway, it was really good for me to have that experience. I lived 10 years there from 7 to 17. Very important years in somebody's life.
Yeah.
And it was a good place to grow up.
Yeah.
But it was also an object lesson on human consciousness in a way. I wrote and curated the stories in an anthology of horror a couple of years ago called the Wiser Book of Horror.
Okay.
And the Wiser Book of Horror and the Occult. And I chose the selections and introduced the selections and stuff, but I also wrote an introduction of it, where, and the introduction was more or less called, I guess, Horror Takes Its Time. And I got interested in the occult and or through my enjoying horror stories and classic horror stories that were available to kids, in the 50s and 60s in Nebraska. And it, in a sense, it touches that same. It reaches way deep into the subconscious and obliges the reader to do, in essence, very magical things to allow themselves to be touched by, especially the great classic horror things. So, and Nebraska was the perfect environment for that, because just beating under the skin of that wholesome looking, honest, God-fearing facade is such monstrous darkness.
Yeah.
And of course you can't even recognize that monstrous darkness without first identifying that in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, which takes some severe, brutal honesty and humility and setting aside and swallowing one's pride and
right,
all of that good stuff. Like, sometimes you meet someone you can tell has never done any of those things. It's like, well, shit. Okay.
Yes, and unfortunately they vote.
Yeah.
So
and run companies. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But I'm glad somebody does, because
I guess. Yeah, there's an interesting. There's a guy. If you search for the neuroscientist who discovered he was a psychopath, is a very interesting case where he was studying psychopaths and killers and people in jail and all kinds of stuff. And then one day he got to know what an MRI scan of a psychopath looks like. And then one day, just sort of to have some normals, just to like, okay, well, let's scan the staff. And then he looked at his own brain and he was like, oh no, this is one of the psycho killers. This is a pretty bad one, actually. And they're like, no, that's really yours.
Yeah.
And he was like, wow, am I a psychopath? And everyone he knew was like, yeah, you're a psychopath.
Wow.
We all knew. And so he determined that when you're treated well, I mean, it's kind of in line with Dexter and all of that, minus the killing. But, that apparently if you're treated very poorly, then kind of this hunter impulse kicks in that doesn't go away. And
right.
And that's where the psychopathic killers come from. But regular psychopaths just become CEOs. And
right.
They're the ones that were told they were, oh, you're so beautiful. You're such a beautiful boy. Oh, you hurt yourself. Oh, you got a boo-boo. Then they grow up and become CEOs. So,
right.
Very interesting.
Well, it is.
Takes all time.
Your observation that if you're handling it correctly, it's just as much of an asset as it is a liability.
Yeah.
And in mysticism, I think Crowley was the one that just pulled it out of the darkness and just forced us to look at it. But basically, if you can't find the light in the darkness, you'll never find the light,
Yeah.
in any place else.
Yeah.
You've got to you've got to take the whole pill and deal with it. It's not, and that's sort of like the big uh, flaw of dualistic
Yeah.
Christianity or anybody that has a God that's so small it can have an opposite.
Right.
And,
Or light only, no darkness, and darkness is defined as everything else.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's just a recipe for mental illness.
Yeah. Then again, kind of in the evolution of religions, you can kind of see how a lot of the major ones went through and are going through these processes of, like, for example, if you ask most Jewish people about the lines in Leviticus about, stoning people to death for having the wrong kind of sex, they'll usually say, oh, well, yeah, that was back when we were Iron Age nomads. We needed to come together as a community, and these were the rules. But these days, things are different. And, so hopefully some of these other groups will catch up in similar fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. So, but I don't know. It's getting scary out there.
Yeah.
You mentioned or you asked if teaching what I teach in China isn't illegal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had thought that, I mean, the whole thing with Falun Gong was they had to take the elixir out and replace it with common sense in order for it to not be a religion anymore or not be spiritual or magical or something.
Right. And I won't say because I have nothing to compare it with except my own keeping track of politics and societies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But first of all, I've run into no even sensitivities or I haven't been warned what to talk about and what not to talk about.
Nice.
The thing is that magic, in my opinion, is common sense.
Right.
Magic is and can be totally 100% non-religious in the classic sense. Spiritual art form. And it is so close to being in magic. I do a Monday night magic class that I'm not getting ready for right now. But there are people in the class that are atheists. There are people in the class that consider themselves Buddhists and Catholics, and there's very few evangelicals that come to class because it's a hard experience.
Yeah.
But the idea that magic like transcends that. And I do open up absolutely every one of my presentations with a big PowerPoint slide about what magic isn't. And I say it's not a religion. It's not even a philosophy. Okay, it's a way of organizing your mind and thinking about the universe and your own place in it. And so I've never had any problems, and I get a lot of Buddhists, and Buddhism is not persecuted. In I would imagine that certain people that might call themselves a Buddhist sect of some kind, if they were politically motivated,
Right.
might raise some eyebrows in the same way that in the United States, if you were too radically or viewed as too radically politically motivated with your religion, uh, it would raise eyebrows too.
Right.
And so I'm a great admirer of Tibetan Buddhism, and there's a political sort of sensitivity in the way that China handled Tibet,
Yeah.
But there was a lama came to my talk and
Oh, excellent.
registered for all 6 of my things. We went out to dinner and we had a wonderful time, and he gave me little gifts and fun little things, but he wasn't going to probably register for everything if I didn't get over that first day.
Right.
And the first day, he asked the best questions that anyone has ever asked me, and it was coming through a translator and everything. But what he was getting at, what he wanted to know, in a sense, he was trying to see, is this magic thing, does it deal with a non-dual, and I use that term because the Buddhists use the term a lot.
It's a great term, yeah.
Yeah, does it deal with a non-dual view of consciousness as the whole ball of wax? In other words, is this just, are you doing magic to control things? Are you doing magic to
Right.
and I said, well, the only reason to do magic is to is to wake up, and once it finally dawned on him that I said, no, the universe is operating just fine right now. Everything's perfect. There's nothing. Everything's there is no right, left, light, darkness. It's operating perfectly right now. All I want to do, all I need to do, all any of us can do is just wake up.
Yeah.
We're just waking up, and magic is just a spiritual art form.
Or in Sanskrit, Buddha.
Yeah. It's just a way of waking up.
Yeah.
And when that light bulb went off, he was my pal for the rest of the thing. I hope I see him again in March.
Oh, I wanted to mention earlier, you were talking about horror authors. I wanted to mention Algernon Blackwood. Have you ever read any of his work?
Yeah, I haven't.
I don't know if he I don't know how prolific he was, but I have the short stories or weird stories of Algernon Blackwood, something like that.
Yeah.
And he was a practicus in the original Golden Dawn.
Right.
And so he was kind of like alluding to things that, of course, Crowley just came out and told everyone later. And so he's kind of tongue-in-cheek going, yeah, he was in there making noises. I smelled incense. There were foreign languages being intoned. I don't know, Yeah. So it's kind of amusing to read from that point of view of
that'd be fun.
The time and place.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm not a big reader. It's my tragic flaw, but
I'm not either. I can't read anything that doesn't grab my interest.
Right. No, if I'm passionate about something and it really has something to do with what I need to know right now, I just eat the thing up.
Yeah.
But just for the sake of debating ideas and things like that, I'll come up with my own debating things.
Right.
I'm just like, I'm attention deficit disordered. Okay.
Yeah.
If they would have diagnosed me like that in school. Instead, they just expelled me. And
oh man.
yeah, I was expelled twice in high school.
Well, you're doing something right then, I guess.
I I guess so. The ACLU got me back in the second time.
Thinking outside the box again, are you?
I was yeah, it was and it's funny that I'm coming up on my 50th class reunion,
Hmm.
and so we're filling out questionnaires and stuff, and uh, well, what were my achievements? Well, I wasn't on the football team, and I didn't win any trophies or on the wrestling team or anything else, but I was expelled twice.
Yeah, my buddy Tim got expelled, and he ended up he had a whole page, like right inside the yearbook. This is the first page. It's just a picture of him with his guitar.
Oh, that's perfect.
It's funny.
So,
Oh, I also I wanted to ask you because I was over at the Huntington Gardens and with a friend of mine, and he was dying of curiosity. And of course, I won't ask you to reveal any names, but there was a story about some Shakespearean magic that went on there.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was wondering if you might elaborate on that a little bit for people who aren't familiar.
Well, it's kind of an illustration of just what kind of a funky homemade magician I am, and,
Hmm.
and how I think about magic. Um, a friend of ours, and a member of our lodge, um, unfortunately got himself. Uh, well, there was just a misunderstanding, a terrible misunderstanding between him and another person that fancied themselves as a magician, but the person was a pretty famous person in cinema.
Hmm.
And have you ever met a genius? If you've met a genius, you know, and if you tried to have a relationship of any kind, even a social relationship with a genius, at first it's kind of fun because you're going, "Oh man, I'm with a genius, and this is okay." But you forget they're geniuses because they don't think exactly like we do, and they've got different priorities and different focuses in life, and
Hmm.
their whole life is really focused on one great cosmic statement that these geniuses need to make in the universe, and they don't really give a shit about who gets in the way of them making this statement.
Right.
Okay, and it's not because they're egotistical or anything else. It may manifest that way, but this genius, we all, human consciousness evolves through sparks of these geniuses. These geniuses advance us all, but they can be absolutely dangerous to know.
Hmm.
Okay, because sometimes they don't care about your feelings or anything else, and they've got their own focus.
Right.
So sometimes knowing a genius is a very, very uh, it's a blessing, but most of the time it's a curse. Just send them fan mail and don't try to take them to dinner. And but anyway, he had a falling out with a very, very mercurial uh, uh, character
Hmm.
that he was a big admirer of, just absolutely worshipped this person. And but anyway, there was a terrible falling out, which was not in any way, shape, or form uh, uh, a real problem. I mean, he was accused of something that he didn't do, wouldn't dream of doing, never did, would never do.
Right.
Okay, and the he was sent a beautifully uh, composed curse on beautiful stationery and very artistic. It was gorgeous. Now, years later, we of course found out that this guy, had cursed dozens of people in this same elegant way, and people had it framed in their houses and stuff. And it's like you're just nobody unless you've been cursed by this person. And but anyway, this person had a certain connection and an identity, a magical identity, because this person is a marvelous magician too. Had a identity with the Shakespeare play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And throughout this long and illustrious career, A Midsummer Night's Dream was sort of projected upon the highlights of this person's life and career. I guess if I was to think of my own, I guess it'd be Elmer Gantry. instead of something as cool as A Midsummer Night's Dream, Elmer Gantry or Dumb and Dumber. But anyway, so he ends up getting cursed, and he brings this beautiful document to my house. I said, "Well, why is he doing this?" And he says, "Well, he thinks I did such and such," and of course he didn't do it. But it's total mistake, and the guy totally went completely batshit crazy, and cursed our friend. And I said, look. He's a genius. All geniuses, have moments of being batshit crazy. Let it go. And but he didn't, because my friend also had a magical. His life was a magical metaphor too, and he didn't like this thing hanging over him.
Right.
And I said, look, let's do something magical ourselves to lift this curse. In the same way as when you evoke a Goetic spirit to go do some chore for you, you just don't forget about the spirit after you do the evocation, because
Right.
in a sense you've mutated your own psyche in order to get this demon to work for you. So you've been mutated, okay? You've worked on yourself, and in order for you to make it stop or redirect it, you're going to have to do another magical ceremony to reprogram yourself, to remutate or unmutate yourself. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So let's get you unmutated here, And so we knew of the passion this individual had for this piece of Shakespeare. And so it's really funny, because if you're familiar with the plot of A Midsummer Night's Dream, it all revolves around a misunderstanding. Somebody didn't see something correctly.
Right.
And it sets the stage for all sorts of very entertaining hijinks. Okay. But it all starts when somebody's eyes are bewitched to see something that isn't true. And at the Huntington Gardens in San Marino, beautiful place, and we've gone to it.
Oh yeah, I'm a member. I go there as often as I can.
Oh boy, yes. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah, I can bring a guest for free. So yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we go a couple times a year. Sometime when we were raising our son, we went very often. He became our tour guide.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But anyway, there's a Shakespeare garden. And the Shakespeare garden is It's not really super flashy or anything else. It's very genteel area, but every plant, herb, or flower that is mentioned in Shakespeare is there. And they've got it planted with a nice little display and everything else. And there's little signs up that say what play it's in and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So the curse in the story all has something to do with a juice from a plant that Oberon, the king of the fairies, has his little henchman Puck squeeze in the eyes of a sleeping woman and man, now that I think of it, that when she wakes up, she missees something. Okay, she
Right.
falls in love with the first thing. Okay, but anyway, it's called Love and Idleness is the name of the herb, and that bewitches the eyes. Then later in the play, there's another herb uh, that is squeezed into the eyes to make her see clearly again. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that herb is also there. And
The
so I said,
antidote.
the antidote is there. I said, so let's take this curse down to the Huntington Gardens and we'll make a day of it, you know, and we'll secretly, quietly steal just a little handful of both of those things, and we'll take the curse over to the turtle pond area there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll sit there and we'll first of all anoint the curse with the mistaken herb, and then we'll take it off with the same curse. And Shakespeare, of course, is he has these curses or these spells in beautiful poetry. The poetry is already there. So we composed the poem that bewitches, and we copied the poem that unbewitches the thing, and we took it to the Huntington Gardens and did that. Now it doesn't sound very sexy, you know, but in a way it really, really was, and we really felt
Right.
like we were doing something, and the emotional and magical connection between one person, you know, who threw the curse and the person and we did it all. It wasn't like we were trying to throw a curse back or anything else.
Right.
The whole thing was a mistake. Let's just treat it as a mistake, you know, with all of the respect and love uh, that one would do when they forgive a mistake. Only this time, let's just extend the magic a little bit. So, did that explain it?
Was there ever any feedback from Kubrick about it? I mean, or
Oh,
whoever it
John,
was.
you did. You didn't say. I certainly didn't say that. No, no. Except everything things. Uh, you know, quieted down.
For that person's life.
Yeah, no more was made of it, and uh, you know, later on, as we discovered, other people took great. Were honored by being so cursed. That even that even took the edge off of it.
Yeah, for
More so.
sure. Yeah, just to know he's not the only one who got that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of dealing with something in its own paradigm, and even going so far as to enter into Shakespearean as its own egregore within which to do magic. I love that.
Right, because I really think, especially for those in the English speaking world, that Shakespeare is more than a playwright. He's a very, very important god, if you will, of in our consciousness,
Yeah.
and so it's quite powerful. And What else did I? Oh yeah, we use. Uh, we've got a Shakespeare oracle
Hmm.
that we did at class. It's my working field theory that if you really know what your question is, and you can bring yourself to ask that real question, what you really want to know, then the answer is screaming at you from every observable phenomena.
That makes sense.
And but it's kind of easier to see it in something that's already, in a sense, approaching perfection. Like if you really, really have a question, you know what the question is, you could look at a rose and
Yeah.
go, oh, okay, I get it.
But yeah, people wrestle over the wrong question, like saying, why?
Yeah.
Or why am I here? And it's like the universe isn't going to answer that one because the word doesn't make sense.
No,
Like
really.
it makes some sense in certain contexts, but not when you're talking about this.
Yeah.
But if you're saying, what would be like if you can't find your purpose in life? I know that, there's a lot of things that say, well, just focus on your purpose. And it's like, well,
Right.
but what if you haven't found that yet? So, trying to discover that or know where to look. Should I look at my strengths? Should I look to my weaknesses? Should I look to, my role models, my idols? To find that sense of purpose, to find, or the quote unquote, why am I here?
Yeah. Well, yeah, once you've brought yourself to knowing that that's what you want to know,
Then you ask the question.
you already know the answer. You already know it. You could look at a ketchup bottle and go, "Oh God, I get it." Oh, geez.
Tea leaves,
Yeah, right,
bones.
right. And so we did a divination class series at class, and I don't know, it was about 6 months we did it. And out of that came this Book of Ordinary Oracles, I call it.
Nice.
And but anyway, so one day before, or no, it was the day of the class. I thought, well, if I really believe that the answer's screaming at you from everywhere, and but it's easier to see the answer in something that's perfect, like mathematics, or that's why Kabbalah is such but it bores me to, or at least math bores me to death,
Right. Kabbalah actually made math interesting again for me at one
That's
point.
the only way math is interesting.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, what do I think is perfect? And that morning I thought, I think Mark Twain is perfect. Okay, he is a god to me, an absolute god. And it's Oscar Wilde is another one. But so I went out in the backyard with my copy of Tom Sawyer, and I just opened it random and put my finger down and jotted down 80 little phrases or sentences or even words. And I took those back in the house, put them on my computer, and made little tiny 88, I think, little cards that I could print out and cut out and have a little stack of cards. And I thought, well,
oh, cool.
And then I'll shuffle those up and I'll lay them all out face down. Actually, I laid 36 of them and had a stack. The remainders I set aside to use if I didn't get my answer out of one of them,
Mm-hmm.
And I got laid 36 out, and then just took two dice, one red and one green, one for the column and one for the row. And then I would ask the question. Well, that took a lot of time, and class was almost at the door, for Monday night class.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it all finished. I was in the bedroom, laid the little grid of 36 by 36 Mark Twain cards out, and had my dice, and I said, okay, I'm going to talk to Mark Twain. This is going to be a discussion with Mark Twain.
Nice.
And I said, okay, Mark Twain, is this a real oracle? And then I rattled the dice and threw the dice, and I found the column and I found the row. And I picked up the card, and it said, that sounds like a good way, but that ain't the way Bob Tanner done. And I said, yes, yes, yes. So that was really, and so I talked about the Mark Twain. Somebody, a wonderful person, made me a beautiful deck of these cards, and has Mark Twain and a riverboat and stuff on them.
Oh, that's great.
But anyway, the showed that we had so much fun with it at class. The next week, one of the class members came back with her own Shakespeare oracle, and she used nothing but quotes from The Tempest. But she had a ritual that opened it up. What seest thou in the dark? Or in the dark blindly, or something like that. Some oracle, and it's all quotes from Prospero's things. And it's just, hang on a second, maybe I hear the books falling over on the floor. That's what life's like here. Let's see if Shakespeare, hang on. Her ritual was what was absolutely. She starts off with a banishing, okay, and she's a dancer, so she's spinning around and doing all of the motions. And she starts off by saying, and this is all from The Tempest, no tongue, all eyes.
Wow.
Be silent. All hail, great master, grave sir, hail. That's Shakespeare himself. See?
Wow.
I come to answer thy best pleasure, be it to fly, to swim, to dive into the fire, to ride the curled cloud, to tread the ooze of the salt deep, to ride on the sharp wind of the north, to do me business in the veins of the earth. Come forth, I say, come. What seest thou else in the dark backward and abysm of time? Some oracle must rectify our knowledge.
Excellent.
And when she did that, the hair went up on all of our heads.
Wow.
It was just so perfect. And then we would pick cards and stuff. And then there's a banishing. When it's all over, she banishes by going, here cease more questions. Our revels are now ended. These our actors, as I foretold you, were all spirits, and are melted into air, into thin air. We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. Then to the elements, be free. No tongue, all eyes, be silent.
Wow. Very nice.
Isn't that cool?
It's a new system just born.
And so in the margin, in the outer right and left hand side of each page of this book, I've put like small little fortune cookie oracles in themselves, so you can just use the book, ask a question, and just open a page at random and read the little oracle in the side. Like, I just opened it up right now, and it just says, "You've got to be joking."
Bibliomancy.
Bibliomancy. This last time I went to China, okay, I was excited, but this was a big, like a full week of classes, and it was kind of a big thing. And they put me up in a wonderful five-star hotel, and it was just they made me as comfortable as I could as I was having a nervous breakdown. And I immediately unpacked because I jumped on the bed and I got out this book. I said, "Well, what's this going to be about? You know,
Mhm.
what are my words of wisdom for this trip?" And I opened it at random, and the little thumbnail oracle said, "Only Nixon can go to China."
What?
And I forgot I even put that one in there. You know, that was from a Star Trek movie where Spock tells Captain Kirk only Nixon can go to China.
How,
And I,
how did you interpret the advice?
I don't know. I was just so blown away that the word China was in it. I just, oh boy. Uh, well, I guess, no, I interpreted it as, yeah, I feel unworthy to do this. Yeah, I feel like I'm the last person on the earth that should be bringing Western mysticism to China. And then it's just telling me, well, who else?
Yeah, it's all about who's available.
Yeah.
Availability trumps talent. Is sort of
There you go. That's just about how I took it too.
wow. That's
So,
cool. I'm interested to, in what these seeds will germinate into later on, like if there's going to be study groups with, Western esoteric study groups over there. I know I have a former student in Hong Kong that runs a tea house, and I'm hoping that he and I can both learn to play Enochian chess so I can go to Hong Kong and play Enochian chess with the
oh, that'd
master
be
of the tea
fun.
house. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. The well, we'll just have to see. You know, tarot is big. The first three times I went to China was I was brought there by tarot groups,
Hmm.
and so divination is culturally a huge thing in China, but it's kind of the superstitious uh, aspect of divination, fortune, good luck, bad luck. It's just reeks of duality,
Right.
and and it's sort of weird because I'm going in. Yes, I do tarot, and but my whole thing is almost just the opposite of what you you want from me,
Yeah.
and so but I found they were just so incredibly open to what I was saying and stuff. So the first few times I started to get into the magic aspect of it more and more and more, and then I got the invitation from this organizer who organizes a lot of Buddhist activity. And he said, "No, come here and let's just focus on magic and Kabbalah." I said, "Okay."
Nice.
What else? Else am I doing in my 67th year?
Well, that'll be helpful because I've spent so long trying to line up the tree of life with, Eastern systems that it'll be nice to have people over there doing the same thing from the other angle.
Yeah,
Like there's a guy in now I was raised, my dad was into Tibetan Buddhism, so we did sort of a Vajrayana thing every morning with bells and chants.
yeah.
But after he passed away, he was also interested in tarot, and so I ended up pursuing Golden Dawn magic for a number of years. And so only just recently am I getting back into delving into the Eastern. And so I ended up with a pen pal in Nepal who has spent his whole life doing, in Vajrayana Buddhism, and his interest is in Golden Dawn magic. And so
Yeah,
it's been really interesting talking back and forth. And, he's like, well, I don't see why you're so interested in what, what we've got here. I'm more interested in what you've got. And it's all like you said about Nebraska. Like I grew up in LA. The idea of moving to a cabin in the woods somewhere is pretty appealing to me, having grown up in a concrete jungle. But I mean, being in Nebraska might have the opposite effect where you want to go see New York, go see.
Right.
I think that it all points to kind of toward a global world. People in the East learning about the West, people in the West learning about the East. We're all kind of being drawn toward the things that we lack, the things that we will make us more whole and more complete. So it sounds all good to me.
It does. It sounds like a win-win situation. I was pleased with everything except the air quality.
Oh, yeah.
And the 2 times I was in Shanghai, the air was very, very clear. But Beijing this last time, I went right in the middle of the big emergency alert things.
Ooh.
And but
Worst in the world, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And but anyway, I keep asking, am I saying anything because I don't want to step on any social or political toes.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody I talk to said, no, they don't give a damn about what you think about truly what's important. They just don't want anything that would smack of being a brainwashing cult.
Right.
And which is, I'm sorry, that's how they feel in Germany. That's how they feel in Poland. That's how they feel in Macedonia. That's how they feel in England. And it's no different. The only difference is they are super, super hungry for this, and they've got a rich background and culture in their own thing that if you can just find a common denominator here and there, the light bulb goes off in their heads without too much effort on your part whatsoever.
Yeah.
And because they're smart, they're subtle, and they've got what appears to me to be a very healthy and wholesome spiritual hardwiring already in place. And the fact that we're drawing closer and closer together economically and socially, and they're liking the same music. The Chinese movies are just incredible. I watch them.
Yeah.
And you just can't help but think, gee, people are just people. And so I'm very, very encouraged. As a matter of fact, I'm more encouraged about the direction they're changing than I'm encouraged about the direction I see us changing.
Right. Yeah.
It is what it is,
Yeah.
and I just wish we could all do a little better with what we've been stuck with. And
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Esoterinerd podcast today.
Well, you're welcome.
And I look forward to, watching your exploits on Facebook and, your next trip to China and your next, song and everything. And if you don't mind, I was going to close with the one about the angel and the drink.
Sure, do it.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Esoterinerd podcast, Lon. Before I close, I wanted to mention, as you know, if you are in a major city somewhere in China and you're interested in Western mysteries, then you know to look up Lon Milo DuQuette and his schedule. However, if you're over here in California and you're interested in Eastern mysteries, for example, yoga, Vajrayana meditation, and that sort of thing, check out bhavasfest.com. That's BHAVASFEST.com. That's going to be up by Kern River. I'm going to be one of the presenters there, and I'm also going to be covering it on my, what I like to call the other Esoterinerd podcast, the To Be a Yogi podcast. Go ahead and check that out. If you use the promo code 2BYOGI, that's number 2 and the letters BYOGI, they'll know that I sent you, and you'll get $50 off the admission price. As always, special thanks to the monks on Mount Koyasan for the music you're hearing in the background right now, as well as the introduction. Thank you to Camille and Kennerly for the Game of Thrones harp transitions in and out of the interview. Thank you to Tangerine Dream for the album Ricochet, which I play behind the Transformations and Footnotes segment. And most importantly, thank you to you, the Esoterinerd listening to this podcast right now. As promised, we'll close with Lon Milo DuQuette's song, Guardian Angel in Disguise.
Deep in despair, without a prayer, I set my mind to bring to an end this travesty of life. One bullet would serve, but I lost my nerve to fire the round, and mercifully end this tragedy of life. So I pulled on my boots and cursed the snow, each and every step down to the inn. There I would drink and make my courage grow, till a stranger sitting near me butted in. Buy me a drink, my friend, and I will stand and sing you the sweetest song you ever heard. 3 fingers of gin, and when it's in, I'll stand and sing you the sweetest song you ever heard. Then we will raise our glasses high to toast to all the angels in our lives, to our dear mothers, brothers, sweethearts, wives, and to the guardian angel in disguise. I could tell that the fool was a luckless soul who craved the juice. I bought him a drink and prayed he'd go away. God bless you, he said, and cocked his head and down the booze, and closed his grey eyes and seemed to drift away. Then as my mind returned to thoughts of doom, the stranger sat up straight just like a king. Then he pulled off his cap and hushed the room, and rising to his feet began to sing. Drink to principalities and powers, and the seraphim of flowers in the springtime. Drink to archangels and dominions, soaring with their downy pinions through the stars. Drink to the cherubic choir that hovers over sleeping babies' covers through night's dangers. Drink to the angel in disguise who has watched you through the eyes of countless strangers. was done, the room was stunned. His eyes shone clear. I swear there was not a dry eye in the place. God bless you, he said, and fell down dead. Right then and there, cap in his hand, a smile upon his face. Then all of us raised our glasses high to toast. Toast to all the angels in our lives, to our dear mothers, brothers, sweethearts, wives, and to